You are listening to the Let's Chat Soon podcast. We are so excited that you are embarking on this journey with us. Let's Chat Soon is a space where we chat all things body, soul, and spirit, and how when you align all three, you unlock a full life. A healthy you is the best gift that you can give to grow the kingdom and to those you love. Welcome back to another week's episode.
I'm your host, Alexis.
And I'm Mackenzie, and we have a really interesting episode.
What are we talking about today?
I want to say today's episode is for the girls, but truly, we're going to explain this episode to you guys like you're men.
And you need to send this to your boyfriends, I feel like.
Because I don't think I would be in a healthy relationship without my boyfriend knowing some of these things.
Yeah, I have to educate him monthly, almost daily.
I'm pretty much on a daily basis. I don't talk about this with anyone else, so I just randomly enlighten him.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send him videos and be like, by the way,
this is why I am the way I am today.
And in case you were confused, we are talking about the female cycle today, specifically the luteal phase.
Grand luteal phase.
And we wanted to do this in kind of like a fun way because I feel like I only learned about the female cycle this year.
No, literally. Like, I remember health class and we didn't even touch on the subject.
Ever.
Not once.
I learned in a book called The Fifth Vital Sign, and that is a fantastic book. I recommend everyone read it. Have you read that book?
I haven't, but I've seen you post about it, and I'm intrigued. I want to read it.
It's so good. It talks a lot about like fertility and things like that, but it also specifically breaks down what hormone of birth control does to your body, what different foods do to your body, how to naturally heal your period pain, how to balance your cycle, what the heck your cycle is.
I didn't even know, again, till this year, that periods aren't supposed to be painful. You're really not supposed to have like these debilitating cramps, migraines, bloating, all of that.
I went on birth control my junior year of high school, maybe sophomore year. I think junior year though, because my period pain was so bad. I could not play my sport when I was on my period.
It's insane. I went on it because of acne. We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Wild. Crazy.
And if you look at the on a periodic table or like the chemical, I don't know.
We're getting
I'm not a
sciencey.
science girl. But if you look at what is the estrogen in birth control and what the estrogen like is naturally, it's completely different. Like molecularly, it's completely different. Yeah. But birth control promotes like, oh, we're just giving you different amounts of like estrogen and progesterone. It's not.
They like to put it in like this pretty little package so that it's digestible and has everyone on it. And so then we just keep having chronic health problems. But that's for another episode.
Anyways, if you couldn't tell what our stances were on birth control before this episode, there's that.
It's a pass for me.
Any day of the week.
Yeah.
But anyways, today we are specifically talking about the luteal phase, and we wanted to break down 10 things we will never do in our luteal phase, which is exciting.
Very exciting.
I wish I knew about my luteal phase earlier in life. I wish I knew, honestly, in like junior high health class. I wish someone broke this down to me because as women, we have a 28-day cycle, and we are a different human being during all of that. Men operate on a 24-hour cycle, which is really interesting because they wake up, they feel the same way every day at 8 a.m. We feel the same once every 28 days.
That is wild to think about it that way.
Yep.
Like the difference between men and women.
And don't worry, this is totally my boyfriend's problem. I hold it against him all the time. How dare you operate on a 24-hour cycle? Like he could do anything to change it. But men and
the audacity.
Men and women are so different in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But we work in a man's world.
Yeah.
So we operate on a 24-hour cycle.
That is like a whole nother episode.
It is a whole nother episode.
Crazy.
But I think this is such a reason why us as women have to take charge of our own health, because all the statistics we have, as of now, it's getting better. It's getting a lot better, honestly, are for a man.
Mm-hmm. And it's so empowering when you actually start to learn about it and start to learn about your body and what your body goes through in that cycle, because things start to make sense. You actually have reasons for why you're feeling away, and you can do things that help it, like we're going to talk about today, like things I would never do during my luteal phase because it makes your symptoms and worsen, actually.
We were just talking off air how we now can feel exactly when we enter each cycle.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't have to track it anymore.
Exactly.
Like I know, like I can tell you like right now where I'm at.
How I feel mentally, how I feel physically, what I look like physically. It all changes based on your cycle. Mm-hmm. So do you want to break down or do you want me to break down your different cycles?
I can try to break it down. So basically there's two main parts. It kind of cuts in half, but you have your follicular phase that starts on the first day of your period. Periods range for people. I think the average is 3 to 7 days that you're on your period, and that's included in your follicular phase. Then you ovulate 14 days later.
About 14 days
About 14 days, and that's about a 3 to 5 day window. No one really knows like when you're going to ovulate, but within that range, you're most likely to get pregnant during that time. That's when you're ovulating. And then as soon as you're done ovulating, you switch to your luteal phase, and you have that phase up until you get your period again.
Yeah. And I think we all know what happens in our menstrual phase. That's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah. Right after your follicular phase, that is when you are on top of the world. You're on cloud 9. You're lifting heavy in the gym. This is when you want to be your most social. You're so outgoing. If you're having any kind of like crazy conversations, do that at that time. You do not want to do that in your luteal phase. Some people still feel great into their ovulation phase, and the ovulation phase is also the only time you can get pregnant. Period.
Which is crazy because I didn't know that until I feel like recently, which is kind of embarrassing to admit, but it's just not talked about.
Exactly. And we walk around all the time saying like, oh, women are going to get pregnant. Women are going to get pregnant. You need to go on birth control. You need to do this to avoid getting pregnant. But there's only like they say to be safe, make like a 6-day window, but you ovulate at a specific time
once
every single month. And that is it.
It's crazy.
But of course, we're not taught about that at all because money comes in birth control.
Yep.
Besides the
Big
point.
one.
So some people have pain in their ovulation phase. I am one of them at certain times.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
I only know based off, like, you have different, how do I say this, like discharge during different phases of your cycle. So I can tell you, like, when I ovulate, like the second, if I go to the bathroom, like kind of TMI, but it's the truth. But I still feel really good throughout my ovulation.
Yeah.
What are your symptoms? Like, what do you feel like?
Sometimes it felt like I was like getting my period growing up. Like when my period was really bad and my cycle just felt so unbalanced, I would just feel like really heavy pain. For a certain time, my mom was like, oh, you have appendicitis. Cause like I was in that much pain. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then that was probably the first time I learned what ovulation was, because she was like, well, it might be like midway through your cycle where you're ovulating and that's why you're feeling this pain. Kind of strange. I don't really know fully why that happens, but people say like there's different reactions to ovulating. Also, 2 months ago, I was ovulating and it felt like I had a cyst rupturing on my ovaries, and I could feel like as I ovulated, I got this intense amount of pain for about 2 hours and I was fine.
That's wild.
It's wild.
Okay, I'm kind of like thinking as I'm speaking right now, but there are some times where I feel like I'm almost getting period cramps a couple weeks before I actually get my period. And we talked about this a little bit off air too. Is like I almost get PMS symptoms a week before I start my period.
Right.
Which is strange because growing up, I remember my periods being rough. Like I had the headaches, the bloating, the cramping.
Right.
I was evil. Now I feel like I just feel a little bit more down and kind of out of it, like moody, not really cramping as much, but that's all a week before I even start my period. And then the period for me is like a little less intimidating.
What do you know what PMS means?
Premenstrual.
Premenstrual, not menstrual. Premenstrual.
No, that's wild.
That's how it's supposed to happen. You're supposed to get kind of a little bit of discomfort, the bloating, everything before your period. And then when your period starts, that's the beginning of your follicular phase. That's supposed to be moving up. So in this book, it talks a lot about like you should not be hating your period. No. Honestly, your period should be the up time in your life. But if your luteal phase is bad and your period's bad, that is half of your month, which equates to half of your life being down bad. That's why it's so important to get these things right. And I feel like too, people who do have really bad periods, one thing that's really helped me is this list that we're going to go through. Being so protective of your body in your luteal phase has been a game changer for me. When I'm super heavy on my body and I don't take care of even like my emotions in my luteal phase, my periods are so much worse.
Yeah, and it makes sense because I've kind of we've talked about this, like the health journey of treating my body better and knowing my body and doing what's right for it. And so that makes sense why my periods were so much worse before I started doing all this. And now I'm so much more in tune with my body and I know exactly when things are happening and I have the correct way of PMSing. Right,
exactly. Okay, so let's break down the top 10 things we will never do ever in our luteal phase. We say this, but we kind of do it every once in a while. But we know when we do these things that our periods are going to be more painful, and honestly, life in general is going to work its way downhill.
I would start with like I guess these two go hand in hand, is not drinking alcohol
Mm-hmm.
or limiting the consumption of alcohol and eating whole foods.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about a little bit of this, of like the whole, what's it called? Seed cycling
Mm-hmm.
thing. I haven't truly tried it. I know people that have, and it really works for them. But you were saying too, like, you don't try to cut out certain foods. It's more of just like adding the foods that are going to make you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I know some of them are like sweet potatoes during
Yeah.
your luteal phase, red meats during your period. I can't think of like off my head other ones that are really good, but
Really, any anti-inflammatory foods right before your period are really good because
Mhm.
your body is super bloated. You often feel that right before your period. And any foods that are anti-inflammatory, you want to add into your diet. And then if you are someone who is like has a good relationship with cutting things out, you want to cut out those things that are super high in inflammatory foods, which can be like dairy a lot of times, high fats, obviously processed foods. All of that is going to make you feel so bad on your period,
Mhm.
emotionally, physically, really all the things.
Yeah.
And then alcohol is really big for me too. I will notice if I drink 3 to 5 days, I would say, before my period, I am like not able to move day one of my period.
It almost like initiates cramping for me.
Yep.
It's like if I do have a glass or two or a drink or two, it's like I start cramping
Mm-hmm.
as I'm drinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, alcohol is not great for you nonetheless, but
It makes sense. But
it makes perfect logical sense. But I think if you are someone who is like us, who likes to do things in moderation, being cautious of these things, of when to maybe indulge in other things and when to not, is so great. Like, it has made life so much easier of being like, yeah, when I want sugar, I'm going to have it in my follicular phase. Or when I want a drink, I'm going to have it in my follicular phase. And it sounds tedious when we sit here and talk about this, but once you kind of like learn to live this way and you just go off of a feeling rather than like, oh, I'm in my follicular phase, I can have this, or oh, I'm in my luteal phase, I can't have this, it makes it seem a lot easier.
And once you get there, when you become in tune with your body, it's almost like you crave those things when you are in your follicular phase, because you are wanting to be more social and your mood is better. So it's like you want to maybe go out with the girls and have a drink,
Right.
or go out and have a coffee date and have a pastry. Like, you're wanting to be more social and go out and do more things. And so once you kind of make that switch and get your body in tune, it becomes more natural. And it's like when you become in that luteal phase, you're almost, your mind switches and you know what to do. It's like, okay, I'm going to heal my body. I'm taking care of it right now. And your mood kind of follows along with that.
Yeah. And in the same way of talking about your mood in your luteal phase is so bad. One of the things I will largely avoid, and I guess this is our second thing, our number two, is having heavy conversations or like really intense, controversial conversations. I posted some very controversial things on my story in the thick of my luteal phase. Next day I was sobbing, crying all day. Like,
Your feelings will get hurt.
I am so emotional in my luteal phase, and I don't know how to handle stress very well either. Like, normally I'm really mature and can have these mature conversations. When I'm in my luteal phase, absolutely not.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Like, if you think about it from the physiological standpoint, your body is preparing for a child. Like, that's what our bodies are doing the whole time of like our period, and then it's getting rid of all that. And so like your body's doing so much work, so it needs the energy to focus on like your organs instead of your brain. Like, if you think about it from that standpoint, it's like, obviously I'm not going to have enough mind power and like emotional intelligence to kind of control that, because my body's doing so much work on the physiological standpoint.
Right, exactly.
So no hard conversations. Don't sit down with your boyfriend and try to like hash out certain things. I don't know. I kind of just like stay away from it during this
I've
time.
seen jokes on the internet of like, if I break up with my boyfriend and I'm in my luteal phase, I didn't break up with him.
No, it's not real.
It's not me. It's not me. If I pick a fight and I'm in my luteal phase,
I'm like, ignore
entirely. I warn my boyfriend, like, hey, I'm in my luteal phase, just an FYI, which is so helpful.
Sometimes my boyfriend will literally tell me, like, before I even know.
By the way, you're in your luteal phase. You're being
He's like, oh, I know what's happening. Like, he's so trained to like kind of know the phases at this point that he sometimes detects it before I make conscious connection in my head that I'm entering my luteal phase.
Brennan has joked now that he kind of like has learned a good amount about the luteal phase. Like, he's pretty well equipped. He knows his stuff. He knows to make me steak in my luteal phase, like all the things.
I love it.
But he'll joke with me and be like, I feel like I'm gonna have friends in the future call me and be like, oh, my wife picked a fight and whatever else. And He's like, I'll know to just be like, just wait a week and a half. Like, she's probably in her luteal phase. Just wait a second. She'll be a human being next week.
That's great marriage advice.
It is fantastic marriage
Everyone,
advice.
like, that's like premarital counseling. That needs to be like a whole course.
I would agree 1,000,000%, actually.
We need to create that.
We really do. And then also, like, in tune with that, also, physicality wise, don't touch me when I'm my luteal phase.
10-foot pole.
That'll be number 3.
Yeah, that is definitely number 3. I am like, I get the ick very easily. And they're just existing, honestly. Like, he hasn't changed because, again, he's the same person 24-hour clock. So he has not changed a thing. But I'm like, oh my gosh, disgusting.
Get away from me. Get away from me.
I don't want to be looked at. Oh, the worst. I feel so bad. Literally this morning. So I'm in my luteal phase right now. This morning, I am doing some things on my computer. I'm answering emails. And he, like, comes over and, like, looks over my shoulder. I'm like, why are you looking over my shoulder? Like, it was the most annoying thing to me. And I felt bad. But I'm like, I don't want to be, like, anywhere near you.
But then vice versa in my follicular phase. And if he moves an inch away from me, nope.
Rude. How dare you?
Rude. Like, I can't say that on the podcast.
You have different desires in your follicular phase. Let's just leave it at that.
I'm going to put that in. I don't care.
Okay, I would say the next thing that I avoid is doing really intense, like, HIIT workouts or really hard workouts. And this is something that I don't necessarily try to, like, plan in my schedule. Like, I don't look at my calendar and be like, oh, today I'm not doing weights because I'm entering my luteal phase. It's something I feel. I remember actually coming up to you in the gym, and I was like, I am so out of breath. I was just doing my normal workout plan, and I felt like I could not catch my breath. I couldn't breathe. I was exhausted. And look at there, I was in my luteal phase. And it makes perfect sense. Your body is working so hard to, like, heal and get ready to have your period that you can't give it as much exertion into doing a crazy workout.
Right. Exactly. And it helps you give your body so much more grace when you understand this. It's not, oh, I can't do this certain thing. Like, that's shame on my body. That's the way my body's naturally designed.
I used to have a really bad habit with negative self-talk, and I would get upset with myself. Like, I'd be like, why am I so lazy? Like, why can't I go out and do this? This is what I plan to do. Especially I was training for a marathon, and I just felt so guilty all the time because I felt like I wasn't doing the job. I wasn't, like, training properly. But once I made that switch in my mind and, like, knew my body and kind of became more in tune with it, I was like, oh, it totally makes sense. And I'm able to train harder on the days that I'm not my luteal phase, when I'm on my follicular phase, because I have that extra energy and I want to go out and train.
Right.
And it just creates this perfect balance, kind of.
And it totally sucks for sports. Like, I wish I knew all this in sports growing up, because there were certain times where I would perform so much less. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, I just don't feel like myself. I'm not playing like myself. And I wish I could look back and be like, oh, girl, like, you operate on a 28-day cycle. Sorry, it sucks.
Teammates, like, that's crazy.
Be like, wow, that team was better. Yeah, you were better. Of course you were.
Right.
But your whole team was in their luteal phase during the national championship.
That's wild. That's so unfortunate.
It really is. You got to look at the beginning of the season and be like, when can we sync up?
Line this up. We need to change.
Literally.
Because we're, like, almost synced up by now.
Right.
Which is wild.
We haven't seen each other in a month.
I know. Thank God, though, because I remember, like, we were trying to plan when to record. Like, we need to be on our follicular phase at the same time.
Right, exactly.
What would you say the next thing is that you would never do on your luteal phase?
Restrict carbs. You need more carbs in your luteal phase. Or you crave more carbs, too. Yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing.
It's not. I hear this talked about a lot of, like, listen to your body when you're actually craving the things. Like, I actually crave red meat when I'm on my period. Like, I crave a steak.
And dark chocolate.
Yes, and dark chocolate, exactly. And those are things that you should be eating during your period or, like, when you're menstruating.
Right.
Which is wild. So listen to your body. Like, I feel like this all just goes back to, like, the basics of listen to your body and do what it's asking for.
But also, I think listening to your body when you're in a healthy body. I think a lot of times people use that as an excuse, and they'll be like, well, I'm just listening to my body. I want sugar. I want this. A year ago, I really wanted sugar, but I had a candida overgrowth. So I craved the sugar, but it was my candida craving the sugar. It wasn't my healthy body craving sugar.
That's so valid. Yeah, that's very true.
But in line of your luteal phase, your body is getting ready to, like, store up your menstrual phase is your winter, so to speak. So it's like when you're quote unquote hibernating. So in the fall, your body's kind of like going out and gathering all the things it needs to store for hibernation. So you need, I think it's 300 to 500 extra calories when you're in your luteal phase, because your body is getting ready to quote unquote hibernate when you're in your menstrual phase.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I'm almost like ravaging when I'm in my luteal phase. And I think that goes back to like fuel your body with the whole foods. Mm-hmm. Cut out the alcohol, the sugar, the things that aren't going to make you feel good, and like actually get whole nutrients, whole macros.
Right.
And you're going to feel so much better.
I was at a wedding and I went to the rehearsal dinner literally like last weekend, and I finished my meal so quickly. I was around all boys. It was a table of all boys. Scarfed down my steak, looked around. No one's remotely done yet. And I like almost stole food like of the leftovers from the boys. I did not want to be
like
that girl,
anyone
but
have extra.
I literally left and was like, I'm still hungry. Mm-hmm. Like I was staying with my boyfriend's family and I'm like, I don't know how to say I'm still hungry.
You're like sneaking out in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. snacks.
Right. I'm like, sorry, I need more calories right now. Another thing we need more of in line with food. We need more food, but we also need more sleep in our luteal phase.
That's a big one.
And also, I mean, we can talk till we're blue in the face. I didn't know this years ago. You need more sleep when you're in a luteal phase. Mm-hmm. Go to bed earlier, sleep in a little later. I tried to not ever really set as many alarms. I'm a lot more lenient with sleeping in when I'm in my luteal phase because my body needs it.
Mm-hmm. The alarm I use on my phone, it's called Alarmy, and it will tell me like when I set my alarm, if I'm going to bed at that exact time, how many hours until that alarm hits. And I'll purposely make sure that I'm getting 8 to 9.
Right.
Like that's honestly, I hate the culture of like no sleep culture where it's
stupid.
Sleep when you're dead. Like I used to think that way though. I was like, so like that's lazy. Like get on it. Like if you didn't get work done, wake up earlier the next day and get everything done. That is awful. I swear I work so much better when I have the sleep. That is like probably one of my biggest priorities, honestly.
It's the biggest life hack to get good sleep. There's so many studies done, and I've seen so many like different videos of people being like, if you could take this one drug that would make you be able to do this, and this, would you take it? Okay, it's good sleep.
Yeah, literally sleep. Have you seen like the pictures, like diagrams of people's brains when say someone gets like 4 hours of sleep and the next person gets 9 and their brain activity and function is crazy, like through the roof, firing off, and the person that got 4 hours of sleep, it's like they're flatlining.
No, but I believe it based on my Whoop stats.
Yeah, we both wear a Whoop. That's wild to me.
I love my Whoop
recovery will be in the dumps. My HRV is like so low if I'm not getting enough sleep.
Right, but I feel like I noticed too that during my luteal phase it says I need more hours of sleep.
It does, yes. That is so true.
It's crazy that it knows that about me, and yes, it like tracks my menstrual phase and things like that too, but they don't necessarily say that. Like it's not like Whoop's telling me like, oh, you need more sleep. It's just saying you need 9 hours tonight.
Right, exactly. And it's not even telling you, like I think the Aura Ring does that. It's like, oh, based off your temperatures you're about to go in your ovulation.
Right.
The Whoop doesn't even do that. It
I
just
wish they
knows. Would. I know. It just kind of knows based off your body's performance, like, okay, you're a little bit more restrained this time, you need more sleep.
Are you guys loving the luteal phase yet? Because it's a fantastic time. Entirely.
It's honestly like you can kind of spin it in your brain like that. Like it's kind of giving we talked about this, like giving your body grace to have a more like hibernation phase and a healing phase and treat your body good. Like it's, I don't know. I don't want to say excuse because it makes it sound bad,
right.
But it really is.
Right. Entirely. Also, in your luteal phase, you look so different. I'm going to post some videos on our stories and things like that of my face shape in my follicular phase during my luteal phase is wildly different.
We should do a video of like, you know, like the second every day, but do just like a second every day of the month of like your stomach and your face.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same way. And just like see how it progresses. That would be wild.
You were so much more bloated in your luteal phase and like leading into your period as well.
Yeah.
Why don't we know that?
What? This year's old when I learned that. I would say this is kind of up there if we were to organize this in like a list of highest priority to least priority. Biggest one for me is not doom scrolling on social media.
I think because of the fact alone that you're more bloated, you don't feel like you look like yourself, you don't feel your best during your luteal phase, doom scrolling for that reason alone, the emotions aside, is so detrimental to your mental health.
Completely agree. Like we already have this kind of culture to compare ourselves, and I think that's just kind of normal for every girl. We all do it, but I think it's heightened when you're in your luteal phase because you don't feel good in your body, your emotions are heightened. It's like all the things kind of make this huge mess, and doom scrolling on any social media is absolutely a no for me. Like, I can't.
And because I work in social media, I can put the two together of not taking on like big projects or things like that at work during my luteal phase, but also organizing my calendar in a way where I'm not having to sit and search for like new reels when I'm in my luteal phase, because I will compare myself. Also, in line with that too, my creativity,
I was going to say that.
Nowhere to be found. So if I have to be filming during that amount of time, also in line with doom scrolling and comparing yourself, me filming during my luteal phase, no creativity at all. None.
And you're going to look back in the videos and just kind of point everything out that you don't like, and you're going to feel just not yourself, and it's not fair to your mental health or your body to be doing that. So if you can kind of like create your schedule, like you're saying, like do the things that are the creative and filming and everything, and when you're feeling good in your follicular phase, do it, because
Right. Exactly. And I don't know if this sounds bad or not. I might literally edit this out, but in the same way of like during fall, you're wearing more covering clothing. That's not me saying like, oh, be ashamed of your body in your luteal phase whatsoever, but it is saying like that might be what you feel more comfortable in during that time of the month.
It's kind of just knowing it goes into with knowing your body, like knowing what's going to make you feel good during that time.
Right, exactly. I don't know. Does that sound bad to be like, cover yourself up?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I feel like even at the gym, like I might not wear my cute little workout set with a sports bra and tight spandex because I'm going to be self-conscious and not want to do anything in there. And I feel like everyone's looking at me and, oh my gosh, like I look this way. So maybe I'll throw on a sweatshirt, and like that's going to help my mental health and get through it.
And all the girls who are like wanting to start the gym for the first time, I feel like there's so many girls who probably go into the gym for the first time in their luteal phase and they're already being so hard on themselves. And then they try to take on new weights and things like that, and they're like, why can I not lift anything more than 3 pounds? Well, babe, you're in your luteal phase and you're already hard on yourself, and you're tackling new things when you're doing that, and we're just not designed to do that as women.
I have been tracking my weights because I'm doing like this program basically where I have a set of weights and I do like 12 reps, and then I go up until I can't do any more, and then I'll lift heavier and drop the reps. And during my luteal phase, I go backwards almost. And that's okay. Like if you're taking a step backwards, you're going to be taking steps forward when you get back into your follicular phase. It's just how our bodies work.
Right. And I think just knowing this, I will touch on this a million times. Education is the best thing ever. Like even if you don't implement these things, knowing them is so pivotal. Knowing that alcohol is going to make your periods more heavy. You can literally hear all of this and be like, I don't care. At least you know. Yeah. That's really like, again, back to the core of the purpose of this podcast. We want to educate on things that have genuinely changed our lives, just so you can know.
And that aren't talked about. Like, I just hate that it's such a pivotal point in our, like, part of our lives, and it's so important, but who's talking about it? Like, why did we learn this until I was 24 years old?
Right, exactly. And we still have this little bit of taboo around the menstrual phase and woman's period and the woman's cycle, but this is literally how we operate.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be looked at as a bad thing anymore. I think we talked about this a little bit, like the hate on the menstrual cycle and all like the, I don't know, just kind of almost like shame that comes with it. But once you know it and can use it, you can use it to your power.
1,000,000%. And girls who are in relationships and things like that, who feel weird about talking about their period with their boyfriends. I think within the first month I was talking about my period with my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Hey, this is my luteal phase. Hey, by the way, this happened. Even just being like, hey, I learned something really cool today. I look like this during my luteal phase.
Okay. This is why I'm psycho.
This is why I'm a literal psychopath and I pick a fight with you during my luteal phase. And also consciously, so he can be aware too. He knows, do not bring up a hot topic or pick a fight or anything when I'm in my luteal phase, because I'm going to react poorly every single time.
And I'll probably cry.
I will 1,000,000% cry.
I'll sob. No reason. But I'm loving that we're talking about this and kind of opening the conversation, and I hope that you can take something away from this episode and kind of maybe incorporate in your life, or just get the conversation going. Like, even like you said, talk about it. Tell your boyfriend, ask your mom how she feels, ask your sister. Like, I think just kind of opening that conversation is the first step in kind of making those small little changes into your life.
Right, because that's probably how we figured out about any of this is having that open conversation. I feel like I probably noticed these things throughout my entire life, like, oh, alcohol makes my period worse and things like that. But because no one ever shared it, no one realized it either. So again, open up the floor, have these conversations with your friends, with your family, whatever that might look like for you, because it truly is so game changing.
Agreed.
And then also let us know if you relate to any of these or if your experience is different. I know people who don't have regular cycles too probably don't relate with literally any of this if you're getting your period every 14 days or something like that.
Or people that don't have periods. I know that's a thing. Like they have like a...
If you're on hormonal birth control,
Oh, yeah, that's true. Even though like I've heard of people that maybe are working out like a ton and they don't get their period, like extreme athletes, things like that.
Yeah. I think learning about this has been so beneficial and made me appreciate my cycle so much because I am able to work to my advantage. I am able to do the things I need to do in my follicular phase and then focus on other things in my luteal phase. I think for so long there's this push of I want to get rid of my period. I hate my period. I don't like my menstrual cycle. And I've even seen apps and like pills you can take to avoid getting your period or push your period. And that's not the way we should operate. Like the female cycle is so cool and can work to your advantage in so many ways. And we need to stop hating on the female cycle. Yeah. It's stupid.
It's so natural. Like it's our bodies and it's doing their job and we shouldn't hate on it for that. Like,
and also if you hate on it, it's going to lead to infertility. Anyways, and that's today's episode. But in all seriousness, that is the end of today's episode. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We are a new podcast. Well, I guess we've been going for almost 2 months by the time this episode comes out, which is crazy. I think today we're a month in.
Yeah.
Officially.
I'm having so much fun. I love this.
I know. Please leave your review below. Again, we are a new podcast. We would love for you guys to subscribe. That automatically leads to a download for us, which is just so helpful in helping grow the podcast.
We love you guys.
And let's chat soon. Bye.